Hopefully, my speeds aren't off by too much.
Drawn together across late years, he told himself to stop thinking about it. He'd given up being a villain. He didn't even know why he was here, trapped on a spaceship with Earth's most dangerous outlaws. Why were any of them here? Creel and Octavius didn't appear to be considering the problem. They were working themselves up to a fight. Both staggered back, and Owen turned to see Ultron. Owen knew of the robot and its nearly indestructible adamantium shell, but it had been destroyed. Owen was sure of it.
I am Ultron. I do not comprehend the events transpiring or how I came to be functional once more. Still less how I came to be present among you. But this is insignificant. My purpose is to destroy organic life. All present qualify.
Oh! Doom grabbed Owen and leaned in close. His mouth was barely visible, and his pupils glittered behind the mask's rectangular eye slits.
You, Owen Reese. You have called yourself Molecule Man in the past. You did not escape the notice of Doom. You have the power to counter Ultron.
No, I gave up being Molecule Man. I'm just Owen.
Yeah,
I don't even know what's happening. I don't know how anyone could destroy an entire galaxy like that, but I think I could learn.
I have need of your power. Of those present on this ship, only you and Galactus can devour Ultron. Galactus likely will not take notice, it seems, so you must.
No, my therapist
is in another galaxy, and Doom is here.
Okay, I get it.
Owen didn't want to do it, but he gave Ultron a push. It was simple, as easy as clearing his throat. The molecules obeyed him. Adamantium was one of his favorite alloys to move. He liked the arrangement of its particles and the patterns into which they bonded. He flipped Ultron into the front of Galactus' boot.
Idiots!
Ultron blasted an energy discharge that scattered the wrecking crew to the other side of the central chamber.
Although it is redundant to even use the word idiot when speaking of organic beings. What is this?
Galactus levitated Ultron with a thought. Ultron rose through the air until he found himself before Galactus' face. The giant's placid expression never changed, but he lifted a purple-gloved hand.
You organism! You will die last, and most slowly. Do not think your size will...
A flash lit up the whole interior of the ship, and Owen turned away, shutting his eyes against the blast. He opened them as Ultron hit the floor, and lay still.
Holy...
Piledriver goggled at the fallen Ultron, while the rest of the wrecking crew gathered nearby. Dr. Octopus approached from the other side of Ultron, his quartet of metallic tentacles reaching out.
Did you see that? He sucked the energy right out of Ultron! How's that even possible, man?
Ultron contains the latent energy of a hydrogen bomb, Piledriver. At least. I might be off by an order of magnitude.
Speak English.
Of course, it might be 10 hydrogen bombs.
The wrecking crew stepped back, and one by one, they looked up at the towering form of Galactus.
He's just staring off into space like it never happened.
Thunderball hefted his wrecking ball and looked around like he thought Ultron might get up again.
He barely noticed Ultron smacking into him.
Noticed enough. Bulldozer looked back down at the fallen Ultron.
I hope he keeps on not noticing us.
You'll see what you have done, Owen. Your powers have been quite useful already. Imagine what you could do if you permitted yourself to exploit them fully.
No.
Weakness will not serve you well here.
You don't tell me what to do!
Owen saw Kang watching them carefully from across the room. Everyone was looking at Owen and Doom. Owen thought briefly of taking all of Victor Von Doom's molecules and repelling them away from each other all at once, but then he pushed that thought aside.
Nobody tells me what to do!
That is what Ultron thought.
And that was when the crack in space appeared. They were close enough that Reed could make out some of the individual figures on the other ship. He had seen the brilliant flash in front of Galactus, but couldn't tell what it meant. The ship appeared undamaged when the after images faded from Reed's vision, but one silver figure lay prone amid the rest of the assembled villains. They had started, but the passengers on his ship were able to avoid. That was a good omen. Those able to keep their heads in difficult situations were more likely to survive.
Look!
Spectrum stood in her black and white winged costume at the edge of the dome, trying to watch the other ship and see what the new planet looked like now that its pieces had been jammed together by whatever cosmic force had extinguished the nearby galaxy. Reed didn't permit himself to think about whether they were in the Milky Way, because then he started thinking about Earth and New York and his son Franklin and Susan. She alone of the Fantastic Four was not with them. Why? He looked beyond the other ship to a tiny bright light set against the vastness of space. Its distance from their ship was impossible to tell against the backdrop of perfect emptiness. In fact, Reed had the sense that the term far didn't have any context here. The perception of distance between objects required two objects for scale. Reed's eye was an object, to be sure, but the light, what was that? It appeared to be a tiny squiggle of pure brightness, impossible to look at directly, even through the dome's evidently polarized material. The light seemed to move, but that might have been an artifact of vision, the eye struggling to make sense of what it was seeing.
That little squiggle has to be a small tear in the fabric of space-time, which leads me to deduce the annihilation of the galaxy was not a natural act. Whatever destroyed that galaxy has deliberately preserved exactly those planetary fragments and adapted them to a new purpose.
I am from beyond. Slay your enemies, and all you desire shall be yours.
Everyone on the ship looked around. Reed noticed that several members of the group immediately turned their attention to Magneto, who appeared to be listening hard and considering the situation much like Reed was. Slay your enemies. Seemingly clear, but in fact not so. Because what was meant by enemies? Those perceived to be enemies, or one's true enemies, no matter whether they were known as such? This was critical. Gnomic utterances, such as the one they were hearing now, depended on inscrutability for much of their impact. The group that understood the message's true meaning would stand a much greater chance of coming out of this in one piece, and avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. All you desire. This, for Reed, was where the whole question got tricky on multiple fronts. Why did this being from beyond need them to kill one another? Or want them to? How could it grant them all they desired if none of them had ever been in contact with it before? How would it know what they wanted? This was a claim of amazing breadth. The fact that it was being communicated directly into their heads in the aftermath of selective galactic annihilation suggested immense power. On the other hand, Reed had heard this kind of claim before. It was the most ancient of beguilements. Do as I wish, and you will be rewarded. The next word spoken, although spoken wasn't exactly the correct word, made Reed feel as if the being had heard his thoughts and was addressing them.
Nothing you dream of is impossible for me to accomplish.
Victor Von Doom watched as Galactus lifted his regal head to regard the distant rift in space-time. This was clearly the origin point of the message they had all heard.
That voice isn't lying.
Doom watched as Galactus left the floor of the dome chamber and flew toward the invisible barrier sealing out the vacuum of deep space.
You, Beyonder.
Doom knew instinctively that Galactus had correctly named the speaker of the message. The Beyonder, yes, from beyond. But what else did Galactus know?
Here, Galactus, I sense that you are from beyond this universe. Beyond the multiverse, of which this universe is but a single facet. I sense the energies you wield.
Galactus blasted through the force field that contained the ship's atmosphere, leaving a wash of prismatic energy that trailed after him as he hurtled away from the vessel into space. Doom saw his chance. He too leapt away from the spaceship's deck and followed Galactus. The Beyonder's communication had left them all with a fading echo of one another's thoughts.
You can take from me my hunger. You can end my ceaseless craving for the living essence of worlds. Let it be done. I will not wait for this shore. Let my torment end now.
Doom rocketed through the breach Galactus had ripped in the force field in the last moment before it resealed, preserving the ship's atmosphere and the lives of all its remaining passengers. Doom was protected by his armor systems and the force field it projected upon command. This was his chance. Galactus was playing the perfect patsy. He dared to cut through the deadly game to its essence, capturing the Beyonder's power and putting it to his own use. But Doom was going to go one better, because where Galactus sought only an end to his perpetual hunger, Victor Von Doom had no desire to end his own. He wanted power, the ultimate and secret powers wielded by the architects of the universe itself. So as Galactus charged toward the hole in space-time, Doom followed in his wake. Let Galactus battle the Beyonder. Doom would watch and analyze and learn. He would understand the secrets of the Beyonder's power. And once he understood those secrets, nothing in the universe could stop him from using them. As they approached the brilliant tear between one reality and another, Doom felt the energies pouring from it. The instruments in his armor exhibited readings he had never seen before and had no idea how to process, but they were all being recorded and would be of use later. Right now, the sensation of the energy nearly overwhelmed him as pressure built against his force field. Even the blackness of space seemed to shift around him.
Do not approach Galactus. You will experience unsuccess.
But Galactus plunged ahead. Doom followed until the ambient energies at the edges of the space-time rift grew too intense. He could feel reality deforming around him, and knew he could go no farther. His armor couldn't protect him against the remaking of space-time. Doom fell back behind Galactus, hoping the Devourer of Worlds would smash through into, what? Another universe? Another dimension? Another reality? There was no word for it. Into whatever place, or non-place, the Beyonder inhabited. If Galactus went through, then Doom would fly in his wake, penetrating the shattered barriers before they could reform. Then he would know. A titanic discharge of energy blasted both Doom and Galactus away from the space-time rift. Stunned, Doom fell toward the strange patchwork planet, unable to control his descent or the tight spin that flicked the space-time rift over and over through his field of vision, limited by his mask. He watched the rift diminish and wink out. It was soon gone, and he fell in darkness. Doom had a moment to think that it spoke well of him that he and Galactus had been repelled in similar fashion. A lesser being would have been annihilated by the Beyonder's defenses, yet Victor Von Doom was simply cast out. The same fate that befell the godlike Galactus. He grew stronger here, Doom thought. There was something about this place that he did not understand, but he understood one thing. The Beyonder's promise was not idle. Unimaginable power lay within Victor Von Doom's grasp. He would attain it. Nothing would stop him. The planet below approached at incredible speed. Doom braced for impact.
So much for the light show. Was that Dr. Doom?
She-Hulk and the others watched Galactus and Doom tumble away from the brilliant hole in the universe. They disappeared from sight as the light from the rift winked out, and she couldn't see where they had ended up.
Swatted back like flies.
Whoever the Beyonder is, even Galactus might as well be an insect to him. Or it.
Both spaceships, theirs and that of the villains, were rocketing low over the landscape of this newly created planet. And then suddenly they weren't rocketing over it, and they weren't on a ship. They were standing on the surface of the planet. No lurch, no sense of hitting the brakes. They were simply there. The same way they had suddenly just been on the spaceship together. Jennifer Walters, the hero known as She-Hulk, had been at home getting ready for a day of depositions and her job as a lawyer when she'd appeared with the others. She was lucky to have shown up here in her She-Hulk outfit, because this planet didn't look like a good place to operate in heels. Unlike her cousin Bruce, she could control her transformations, and they didn't affect her intellect. The terrain around them was distorted, like something out of an old movie. Strange rock outcroppings dotted the landscape. A line of volcanoes smoked in the distance, creating an overcast sky that dimmed the sun.
Whoa! Where are we now?
Be ready for anything. Circle up. I'm 12 o'clock.
Avengers at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Iron Man, keep that radar working. What do we see?
As far as Jennifer could tell, the X-Men ignored Steve's orders. The Fantastic Four and Avengers formed a circle, looking outward over the bizarre surroundings. Reed Richards stretched himself out, and those in the group who could fly did so, extending their field of vision.
Flame on!
No sign of any villain presence.
What are you talking about? Magneto's right there.
Wasp was standing next to Hawkeye.
Clint's right. I'd say Magneto qualifies. But as villains go, at least he can make conversation. And I love his color sense. Plenty of us have had our bad boy moments, Clint.
Magneto looked as surprised as any of them at this borderline flirtation from Wasp. Surprised, but not at all displeased. Jennifer could have sworn that Janet had winked at him. Jennifer rolled her eyes. She loved Janet like a sister, but the woman had bad taste in men.
Bad boy moments are one thing, but we don't need any murderers on our team.
You presume to judge. I have killed and I will kill again in defense of mutant kind. But I am no murderer. I have said it before and I will say it again, though you are too hidebound in your safe little pieties to listen. Extremism in the defense of the lives of one's kin is not evil. You would do the same.
Hulk and Thor didn't look persuaded, Jennifer noted. She wasn't sure she was persuaded either. She'd heard plenty of megalomaniacs justify themselves in similar terms.
This is neither the time nor the place for trials. Magneto has been placed here among us. There must be a reason for that. Let us learn what that reason is before we make judgments.
We know Magneto better than the rest of you. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't agree with his methods, but we are not going to. Listen up. You taking his side doesn't make you look too good. Think about what Magneto's done in the past.
Back off, Bub.
I can handle this, Logan.
I can too. Look, we all know Magneto's a bad guy. How about I take care of him and we've got one less problem to worry about?
You dare!
The magnetic pulse slammed Human Torch down into the ground. Johnny lay stunned.
I am Homo Superior. I stand above all of you. I can control the iron in your blood with merely a thought. Yet you presume to judge me!
Iron Man and Spectrum were the other two heroes closest to Magneto. With a flip of his wrist, he levitated a large chunk of ore torn free from the planet's crust and smashed the two heroes away. They sprawled in the dust and then scrambled to their feet. Spectrum shook herself off and took flight.
Flame on.
Magneto suddenly found himself flanked by the Hulk and the Human Torch. The three of the X-Men stepped in their way.
Stop! You heard Xavier. This isn't the time or the place. Right now, he's an ally.
Shove it! He's already showing his true colors, and so are you! Standing up for him.
I'm inclined to agree.
You'll have to go through me to get to him, Green Jeans. Banner might be sharing your head, but he hasn't made you much smarter. Enough. I will not see mutant blood spilled on my behalf. I leave you, all of you. Do not follow. Let none of you say Magneto drove a wedge between you. You seem perfectly capable of doing that for yourselves.
And then Magneto flew away, disappearing over a line of craggy hills in the opposite direction of the looming volcanoes.
Quite a feat. He can integrate himself into the magnetic field of this planet's crust. It's amazing that this planet even has a usable magnetic field if you think about it. After all, how many different bits of planetoid rubble is it composed of? How many different magnetic fields did those planets have? Either this new planet is remarkably cohesive, or Magneto's powers are somehow enhanced by these surroundings.
Jennifer still couldn't get used to the Hulk, talking like he was her cousin Bruce. She knew he was always Bruce, at least in part, but it was a strange thing hearing the Hulk talk like a scientist.
Look, we need to stop arguing. And yeah, before you say it, I know it's funny that a lawyer's suggesting we not argue. But seriously, we need to organize. We need a leader.
Reed?
No, I don't want to lead this group. I am not at my best. Every moment, I'm wondering where Susan is, where Franklin is.
4-star
You need
speeds,
someone
nice.
more focused than I feel I can be. Wasp is leading the Avengers at the moment, isn't she?
I am. But a lot of you don't know me, and I bet some of you only think of me as a fashion designer who happens to be able to shrink. I'm not going to put myself in a position where everyone's second-guessing me. That'll just get people killed.
You could do it, Professor. Perhaps I could, Captain, but I'd rather think the task is best left to you. I am perhaps better suited to an advisory role, such as the one I typically play with the X-Men. Battlefield leadership is another quality entirely, and one you certainly possess.
I don't know. You saw what just happened. Cap can fight, but he's a little too by the book for my tastes. He's a government man, and last I checked, the government wasn't a big fan of X-Men. We don't need S.H.I.E.L.D. yes-men pretending to give a damn about us and leading us around.
He may lead me around, in your phrase.
Thor stepped into the middle of the group. As far as Jennifer could remember, those were the first words Thor had spoken since they'd all appeared on the ship.
I have fought with Steve Rogers across nations and worlds, and I trust his leadership as I trust no other mortals.
Don't guess it matters what the rest of us think if the Avengers are gonna decide they know what's best. I don't care. Cap, it's all yours. But you better know that if it comes down to it, I'm gonna do what's best for the X-Men.
You know me better than that, Logan. I'm going to do what's best for everyone, including the X-Men.
I'm gonna tell you what to do, all right? I'll do it the hell, okay? I'm not taking orders from anybody, all right?
Let's do it! Grab that Beyonder card was pretty damn clear. Kill your enemies, get what you want. Simple. Why are we still talking about it?
The villains were in a fortress built into the side of a hill, not too far away from where they'd all suddenly materialized on the surface of the planet. Doc Ock was digging through the base's techno-toys like they were the most important things in the world, but all Creel wanted was to get out there, find the other guys, and put them in the ground. He was the absorbing man. Just by touch, he could take on the characteristics of any object. With his wrecking ball, he was basically unstoppable. He should be leading this show, he thought. Then they'd get things done. He was just about to slap someone around to make a point, when lo and behold, Doom walked in. He looked pretty good for a guy who just crashed down from space. The wrecker just about fell all over himself, even dropping his crowbar to rush to Doom's side.
We were hoping you were still alive. You seem like you know what's going on here. Someone's gotta take charge. We all think you're the guy.
Not all of us.
We're gonna have to work together to win the Beyonders prize. So let's do it.
The prize? Is that all you can think about? We have witnessed the power to destroy universes. And you dwell on your own desires? Listen, we must not fight among ourselves. That much should be clear to you. The task we have been set is to win. But there is still a greater prize. There is more at stake than whose petty dreams come true. First, we must comprehend the nature.
Oh, cut it out!
Creel had never liked Molecule Man. Skinny, scar-faced little punk, always going on and on about how powerful he was. And then what did he talk about when push came to shove? His therapist.
We sure better fight, all of us. That's why we're here. I want a life, a house, and friends. And you know what else? I want a woman who likes me. Not because I can do what I can do, but for me, you know?
Doom's backhand knocked him to the floor.
Ignore your petty dreams. To fight is to prove that we are as the Beyonder sees us. Microbes on a slide. We must transcend ourselves. We have a chance to contact a being to whom the gods themselves are insects. The key to immortality itself is within our grasp. If we proceed with some caution.
Caution? Caution? What, are you scared?
Sure he is. He saw Galactus get slapped down, and now he can't find his guts anymore. I thought you were the guy to take charge, Doom, but maybe I ought to think again.
The next time you think will be the first. You would behave as bacteria. You wish to play the Beyonders game?
If that means fighting, hell yeah, I do.
Things were about to get physical, and Creel was ready. His ball and chain were itching to put some dents in Doom's mask, but he never got the chance. Energy beams from Doom's gauntlets blasted apart the beams holding up the front section of the fortress. Creel got mostly clear of it, but he was partly pinned, with one of his feet stuck under the wreckage. He saw Doom walk away.
I should have known you could never understand. In all the universe, there is perhaps one other I comprehend.
Creel thought to himself, oh yeah, the brains always stick together when they can't sucker regular Joes into doing what they want. Creel knew who Doom was talking about. His old college buddy, Reed Richards. They were enemies, supposedly, but when push came to shove, the science types always stuck together. Creel watched through the collapsed entrance as Doom headed for a ship he'd spotted, some kind of sleek jet, parked on the open ground in front of the fortress.
You go ahead! You go right into Reed Richards! That's fine! The rest of us will be ready for you when you come running back!
It didn't turn out that way, though, because from where Creel lay, stuck in the wreckage, he could see another guy who wasn't a big fan of Victor von Smartmouth. That guy was Kang. He might have been a purple-faced freak, but he was also a time-traveling super genius who didn't have any patience at all for being ordered around by Doom or anyone else. To prove the point, he was firing up a big gun. When Doom got into the jet and worked some mojo to get it flying, Kang was ready. Kang tracked Doom's ship from a control seat in the fortress's turret, right above the collapsed part of the lower floor. And as soon as Doom's ship was clear of the fortress, Kang blew the thing right out of the sky. And Creel loved every second. Magneto made no attempt to measure the distance he flew, save when he passed over one of the places where two different sections of crust came together. Their magnetic fields were jumbled and unpredictable. He had to guide himself carefully to navigate the new field without losing control of his flight and plowing into a mountain. The variety among the new planet's terrain was astonishing. Endless plains of mud and marsh lay next to rock formations thousands of feet high. Rivers of lava met rivers of water, resulting in roaring bursts of steam a mile high. Volcanoes vented the tectonic energies gathered during the creation of this battle world. Was that what it was to be? Was that all? A place assembled to challenge them in battles from which only a few, perhaps only one, would emerge to claim the reward? Magneto's concern was that the winner would be the kind of sociopath who would gleefully see the universe destroyed for his or her personal aggrandizement. Magneto knew others would believe that of him, but his intentions had nothing to do with vanity or power. He wanted mutant kind to achieve its destiny, free of persecution. If that made him a villain to some, so be it. He had been cast out of the so-called heroic faction, and he knew that his initial placement with them would ruin any chance he had of building an alliance with the villains, none of whom, he noted with interest, were mutants. Magneto had a singular status among all those brought to Battleworld. This was a conundrum, but it was also perhaps the first glimmering of an insight into how he would proceed. The first thing he must do, he knew, was find his own base of operations. He had already flown over several pieces of villages, cities, and other installations of unknown purpose, magnificent in their ruination. Now he saw one option sitting complete, an immense, U-shaped, steel-like structure with two arms angling away from the ground. It rested on a central pillar built from the curve of the U and was surrounded by miles of vine-like growths that undulated over and around each other, apparently tapping their energy from widely spaced holes in the ground from which strange smoke curled. Magneto hadn't the slightest interest in the ecology of this interaction. What interested him was the building itself, and what might lie within. He found his way inside without difficulty and began to explore. The accommodations were luxurious, with sleeping and living quarters the equal of anything he had seen on Earth. The technological level of the machinery and instrumentation was advanced, but not so far beyond his understanding that he couldn't put the building's features to use. He chose for his quarters a space near the end of one of the arms, underneath a pair of enormous gun barrels. Its exterior wall was transparent, offering him a fine view of the surrounding area. It seemed almost custom-made for him, a thought that gave him pause. Had the Beyonder guided him here? Magneto knew he must be on guard against the subtle manipulations of which a being like the Beyonder was surely capable. Musing on this, he considered his next course of action. Were the others also assessing their own roles within the larger groups? Surely they must be. Whatever the failings of Xavier and his X-Men, they were keenly conscious of the collective well-being, as they saw it. Magneto considered them naive to the point of stupidity, but one could never accuse them of selfishness. So too with the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man, who seemed randomly added into that compliment. Odd. Magneto considered that on Earth, he would have fought the notion that his thought processes had anything in common with ordinary Homo sapiens, or even with other mutants who had chosen Xavier's banner over his. Yet here, in the secret strangeness of Battleworld, Magneto had a sense that they had all been shocked into thinking along similar lines. He wondered whether they also shared his sense of destiny. The place, its very existence, seemed to tell Magneto that he was there to realize a powerful purpose. How to fulfill that destiny? That was the question. He considered, and a plan began to take shape. Captain America was the first to locate the source of the explosion, looking at the smear of smoke in the sky and the trail falling away from it toward the ground.
It was a ship. Looks like it was shot down.
Reed was already stretched as high as he could go, while still keeping his balance. He saw the impact site, the base of a brushy hillside that would have seemed Earth-like, except for the bluish cast to the vegetation and the silicate flowers blooming at the ends of faceted stems. Scattered wreckage burned and smoked, but Reed couldn't see any bodies or survivors.
That's where it fell, only a few miles away.
Let's check it out.
They went as a group. Thor soared through the air, pulled along by his hammer, while Spectrum and Human Torch flew under their own power. The Hulk covered the distance in a series of mile-long bounds, carrying the Thing by one arm. Spider-Man swung behind on a line of webbing stuck to the Hulk's back, like he was a skateboarding kid hanging onto the bumper of a car.
Woohoo!
He was enjoying the ride, but Ben Grimm didn't feel the same.
How humiliating.
Oh! Storm brought along Reed and most of the rest, carrying them with her in a pocket windstorm she created and controlled. Though she couldn't carry, rode on a large flat stone platform that Iron Man held aloft. It was a makeshift arrangement, but it got them there. They were prepared for a fight, but when they landed, there wasn't anyone to confront. Dr. Doom was crawling free of the wreckage with his cape smoldering, parts of his armor gashed and sparking.
Must speak with Richards. Only Richards will comprehend.
Doom! Cyclops and Captain America were the first to reach him. Reed was close behind, along with Wolverine, Colossus, and Johnny.
How could he have survived that?
Now so great it humbles us. We are bacteria, dust.
Reed stood back from his old enemy. Doom had always been mad in some ways, but this was different.
Whoa. If Doom is talking about being humble, he must be worse off than we thought. Steer clear of him, Cap.
No, he's hurt. Maybe badly.
Cap moved closer to Doom, who seemed barely aware of any of them.
Better disarm him first.
Flames licked from Johnny's hands, ready to torch Doom at the first sign of hostility.
Let me handle it. I'll cut him out of his armor. We'll see how tough he is then.
Back off, both of you.
Richards!
Reed pushed forward as Cap offered Doom a hand. Doom just stared at it.
Doom requires the aid of no man. Yes, in your eyes, Captain America, and yours, Richards.
Looks like you could use a little pity. Your friends aren't treating you too well, are they? And we sure as hell don't want you around. Scram!
I was a fool to think such as you might comprehend what only Doom can know. And you, imposter in the Iron Man suit, I had thought that if Richards did not understand Stark would. However, my armor's instruments tell me it is not only Stark wearing the Iron Man armor. Biometrics do not lie.
Iron Man flipped up the faceplate of his armor. Sure enough, it was James Rhodes inside.
Oh, I should have known. Tony would never have been able to keep himself from bossing everyone around. James, were you planning to tell us?
I was waiting for the right time. I was running some test flights for a new prototype suit. The Beyonder must not have looked too close. He saw the armor and grabbed it just like he grabbed the rest of us.
This deception proves you and your accomplices are unworthy. You will rue this moment. I thought to make you a part of a grand endeavor to understand and command the Beyonder's power. But not that you are deserving of such an idea. You will travel this path alone.
blasted the rocks beneath Captain America and Wolverine's feet, and rocketed away.
Man, Logan, where'd you go to charm school? Maybe Doom just wanted to hang out.
Shut up, Matchstick. You know better than to trust Doom.
As long as I've known him, and that's since we were in college, Victor has been a man eternally searching for a grievance that would justify his worst behaviors. This is no exception. Sometimes I think his fondest desire isn't actually power, but an excuse to indulge himself in his worst.
It sounds like a straight stretch.
Just thinking out loud, Ben. There's something about this planet, or maybe the Beyonder's power, that has us all thinking about what we most desire, isn't there?
Yeah, maybe so.
Better worry about it later.
Iron Man dropped his faceplate and powered up the suit's repulsors.
I'm scanning multiple incoming bogies. We're under attack.
Reed turned quickly. Sure enough, the rest of the villains had seized the opportunity to attack while the heroes were talking to Victor. They came charging over the nearest rise en masse, with the Enchantress in the lead. Kang was beside her, already firing. Spectrum flashed into pure light and dodged the beam from Kang's gun. Behind them came the Wrecking Crew, Molecule Man, Dr. Octopus, and the Lizard. Two of the Wrecking Crew, Bulldozer and Piledriver, piloted a three-legged turret with a mounted cannon. They blazed away recklessly, the cannon fire chewing up huge pieces of ground, sending the heroes scattering. As he stretched and dodged, Reed regretted their trip to the crash site. It had cost them precious time that they could have used to find and exploit whatever resources the Beyonder had left here on. Was it the Beyonder's voice saying this? He didn't know. It felt the same as his own thoughts, and that was dangerous. The rest of the heroes rallied.
X-Men, to me!
Wolverine's claws snapped out. He dropped into a fighting crouch, waiting for the first target to come within leaping distance.
Avengers assemble!
Cap charged to the forefront of the group.
Avengers? We're not all Avengers. Remember what the Beyonders say! Line up the body bag till we get anything we want! Who needs an excuse?
Bulldozer manned one of the guns on the turret and blasted away at Thor, who held tight his mighty hammer Mjolnir as it soared ahead of the rest of the heroes' group.
Let's just do it!
Only Doc Ock seemed to hesitate.
Wait, we must strike all at once!
None of the other villains were listening. The battle was on, and all of them had the Beyonder's words ringing in their heads.
Slay your enemies, your desire shall be yours.
A shot from the turret tripod blew apart the rock outcropping at which the heroes had mustered, catapulting them through the air. Those who could fly regained their balance while aloft. The others crashed down hard onto the broken landscape. Hawkeye was lucky enough to land on his feet with his bow nearby. He grabbed it and knocked an arrow, peering through the cloud of dust for targets. Cap dug himself out of the rubble.
Hulk, we need 2 seconds to regroup. These things hit like Thor's hammer.
Cyclops was down after taking a direct hit. Lockheed the Dragon hovered close by and blasted Doc Ock with fire.
Hawkeye, take out that gun.
Hawkeye took aim.
Gotcha.
He popped one of the Wrecking Crew with a concussion arrow. He wasn't sure which one of the Wrecking Crew, who could tell those guys apart. Hulk hefted a giant chunk of rock to flatten the turret, but Kang anticipated his move. The pistol in Kang's hand was small, but it packed a big punch. The shrapnel sent She-Hulk and Spider-Man running for cover. Reed had stretched himself out to protect some of the fallen, including Rogue, who had gone down in the first barrage from the tripod. They were going to need her, Hawkeye thought. Rogue packed a combination of raw strength and power absorption that would come in real handy when dealing with the villain's superior numbers and their willingness to kill. Cyclops was struggling back to his feet, just as another pile of rocks flew their way. Hawkeye ducked, but a flying stone caught him in the head and momentarily stunned him. When he'd gotten his eyes uncrossed, he saw that Thor and Cap had flanked the villains, while Iron Man and the Thing had baited the trap as targets in a perfect kill box below an overhung rock outcropping.
Watch it, shellhead.
As the villains charged in, Iron Man hauled Ben Grimm out of the way.
Now, Thor!
And Thor brought down Mjolnir on the rock outcropping. The rock rock exploded and tumbled in an avalanche that covered Kang, Thunderball, the Wrecker, and the Lizard. The villains had rushed ahead, looking to overwhelm the Avengers and the rest of the good guys. Dumb move, Clint thought. It was tough to outthink Cap in a battlefield situation. The good guys had taken some losses early on, but now they were turning the tide. The Hulk had gotten close enough to the turret tripod that he could grab one of its legs. Whatever alloy it was made of resisted him for a moment, but he got it in both hands and twisted. Piledriver and Bulldozer spilled out, and Johnny Storm kept them occupied with his special brand of Hotfoot. Cyclops blew apart the fallen tripod with an optic blast.
Nice. After I did all the hard work.
On the other side of the fallen rocks, Reed had been forced to leave the Fallen and fight on his own. She-Hulk ambushed the Enchantress before she could deliver a killing blow to the fallen rogue.
A green woman? Is there no end to the variety of mortals? Unhand me!
Enchantress slapped She-Hulk away with a backhand discharge of arcane energy. Clint took a shot at the Enchantress, hoping she'd be distracted enough that her magical senses wouldn't detect the arrow coming. That didn't work. She flicked it out of the air while it was still yards away. But in that brief moment, She-Hulk's left-handed haymaker sent Enchantress crashing hard into the tumbled rocks.
Wow! It's not too often that I get to really unload on someone who's solid enough to take it.
Clint noted that the Enchantress didn't answer. In fact, she didn't move at all. The villains were on the run, at least the ones who could still run. Doc Ock led the way, moving on his tentacles with incredible speed. Clint started to line him up.
Hold fire, Hawkeye. We've got prisoners already, and we need to consolidate our position. Let's not make the same mistake they did by overextending ourselves.
Clint was a little irritated to be stood down like that when he just gotten started, but they were a team. Staying a team was how they were going to survive this situation.
Storm, do a quick recon and see if there's defensible shelter anywhere near here.
Aurora Monroe found it easy to fly on this world, almost as if it had been made with her desires in mind. The air bore her up. The currents of water and magnetism and electricity, all the invisible forces that conspired to create weather, all of them were more intense here. She could do anything, if she only wished for it. She flew high above the shattered piecework terrain of Battleworld, seeing where one planet's remains ended and others began. She saw fights among animals that had evolved billions of miles apart. She saw fantastic landscapes that could not have existed on Earth. She saw cities destroyed by the shock of their upheaval, small villages, ruins of long-vanished civilizations, accidentally swept up, and the creation of this planet. That was Battleworld to the senses, the eyes and ears and nose, but she flew faster than she ever had, and the weather obeyed her like never before. Everything she had struggled to master on Earth came easily to her here. The vast engines of weather seemed designed for her, the clouds waiting to gather at her command, every molecule of water begging her to make it rain, the bottomless well of electrical energies crackling at her fingertips and sparking from the ends of her hair. On Earth, Aurora could control the weather. On Battleworld, the weather submitted itself to her. She understood then what the Beyonder truly offered. It would be very hard to resist. Doom had decided it would be to his advantage to allow Kang and the others to believe he was dead. Faking one's death was a most excellent feint, if applied judiciously. He had tried to make all of them understand that they were playing for much greater stakes than simple wish fulfillment. The Beyonder was a being of trans-dimensional power, power greater than any of them understood. Even Doom himself, he had to admit. Battleworld had provided them a chance to discern the nature of that power, and once the nature of the thing was understood, it could be controlled. So let the others fight out their petty grudges. Doom would play for the true stakes of this game, the ability to unlock the powers of the Beyonder, and other beings like it, if such there were. He found Galactus where the mighty being had fallen in the wake of his expulsion from the Beyonder's gateway. Was he dead? Could such beings as Galactus die? No. He was moving. He didn't get his feet under him instead. He simply rose from horizontal to vertical and set his feet on the ground.
Hear me, Galactus! Hear the words of Victor Von Doom!
But if Galactus heard, he gave no sign. Galactus ignored him as if he were a microbe, Doom thought. And yet, so was he compared to the Beyonder. Galactus perhaps was still playing the Beyonder's game. Doom refused. He would make his own rules, and the others would play the game of his choice.
Come on, bitch, die.
Leaving Galactus to his own foolish ploys, Doom returned to the fortress vacated by his associates when they sallied forth to begin their battle. It was deserted and quiet, until Doom's presence awakened defense drones that had previously been dormant, activated perhaps in the absence of the large group. He dodged the drone's energy blasts and maneuvered himself in front of the door. He paused for a split second. Then, as their weapons discharged, he slipped to one side. The drone's attack weakened the door. Doom then destroyed the drones with casual blasts of energy from his gauntlets. He could manage the rest of the entrance by himself. He began blasting apart every control mechanism he saw near the door. One of them, logic dictated, would oversee the defensive systems within the fortress. Once they were deactivated, the entirety of this edifice would be his to use as he saw fit. He finished wrenching open the door. He explored the halls and rooms, seeing much he did not understand, but would, given time. Then, in a laboratory 5 times the size of even the grandest room in Castle Doom, he saw something that he instantly knew could be turned to his advantage. On a gurney, framed by an array of instruments and tools, lay Ultron. Galactus may have neutralized the mighty automaton, but Doom knew that Ultron was never quite as dead as it might appear. Perhaps its adamantium body could still be reanimated and controlled.
You will be quite useful when the rest of my associates return from their skirmish.
He finished just in time. Having rebuilt some of the surveillance systems, Doom was aware of the others' return well before they arrived.
Are you sure they haven't followed us?
Of course I'm sure, you nattering ninny.
The Wrecker was with them in the vanguard of the returning group.
There's our little home away from home. We can regroup and figure out our next move inside.
Doom noted their diminished numbers with some satisfaction. They had failed without him, as he knew they would. He presented himself in the doorway.
Greetings. Welcome to Doom Base.
I thought Kang destroyed you.
Looks like you didn't do such a good job.
Wrecker hoisted his crowbar to his shoulder.
Yeah, well, that can be fixed. Get out of the way, Doom, or I'm gonna melt that mask off your face.
I think he's just trying to say we're very tired and would like to come in and get some rest.
No, Creel is right. He said what we all meant.
Dr. Octopus rules here now, Doom.
Octavius's tentacles reached out for Doom, who made no move to resist. He had anticipated such a power shift would occur in his absence, but Doom always had a contingency plan. A blast of energy from the doorway dropped all 4 challengers to the ground.
I think not, Octavius.
The 4 recovered their senses and looked up to the source of the ambush.
Ultron? Correct, Ultron. Composed of a material you cannot damage. Powered by energies that even you cannot hope to absorb, and none of the rest of you can withstand. I rebuilt him. He now serves me. Would you like to pursue your challenge? Or shall we move beyond this little contretemps and proceed with my plan to gain control of the Beyonder's powers?
Whatever. I'm hungry. You want to be in charge, Doom? You go ahead. Let's see if it lasts.
Indeed we will. Gentlemen, your quarters await.
Seeing themselves abandoned, Creel and Octavius followed the Wrecker and Molecule Man inside the base. Doom fell into step next to Owen Reese.
I trust you are not unduly inconvenienced by that misunderstanding.
As distasteful as Doom found the man, Reese had to be handled carefully. At times, he needed to be cowed, at others, encouraged. He was perhaps the most powerful of them all for now, and he was critical to Doom's plan.
No, I just want to stay out of it, Doom. All of it. I'm tired.
Naturally. I believe you will find your quarters quite your liking.
What's Doom's game? Why is he cozying up to crybaby Reese? Let me explain it to you while you shut up and listen. Reese comes across like Emperor of the Wusses, but that guy's probably more powerful than the rest of us combined. Except he's psyched himself into not using his powers. Doom's probably trying to make sure he's gonna help when we need him.
This was good, Doom thought. Even a cloud like the Wrecker understood. He let them go, and then he let Molecule Man leave as well. Doom and Octavius stayed behind.
It appears as though you hold the cards, Victor. What's your plan? And what happened to Galactus?
Behold.
A 10-meter-wide video screen lit up. The display showed Galactus, framed in a nimbus of energy, astride a snowy mountain peak.
He stands there, perhaps 4,000 miles from you. He has not moved. I am not certain what he's doing, but I have my suspicions. As far as the plan, suffice it to say that the forces of Doom will triumph. As long as you are with me, nothing will concern. Rest now, Octavius. There will be much to do soon.
Ben Grimm knew he was a gloomy Gus by nature, and this Battle World place wasn't doing his mood any good. After the battle, it almost magically found a base large enough to house them all, even the prisoners. Ben drifted through the place while everyone else was doing, well, whatever they were doing. It was late at night, and most of them were probably asleep. Ben wasn't sleeping so well, and there wasn't even a Mets game on to distract him. Battle World didn't have any TV sets that got New York stations. The base was so big, he could wander for weeks and not even see half of it. There were hangars, garages, a little factory, and all kinds of giant mechanical stuff down in the lower levels. A bit higher up were labs, floors and floors of labs. That part of it was like Reed's Nerd Hideaway in the Baxter Building, only times 100, and with tech that none of them had ever seen. Still, the brainiacs in the group were already starting to figure it out. Living quarters took up the upper floors, except for a big meeting area all the way up top, with windows all around. All in all, Ben thought, it wouldn't have been a bad place if it had been back on Earth, instead of out here on the hind end of nowhere. He didn't know what to do with what the Beyonder had said. No way was he going to just go kill a bunch of people no matter what. His fondest wish, other than not being a big ugly walking mess of orange rocks, was to return home to Alicia Masters. He'd found love with the blind sculptress, but he wasn't worthy of her. Most of the time, he figured she just pitied him. But the one time he'd mentioned that to Sue Richards, she looked like she wanted to smack him.
You're pitying yourself. Don't put that on Alicia.
Which was fair enough, Ben thought. That was one more thing he had to figure out.
I wasn't even wearing my uniform, but when I got here...
Ben turned a corner and saw Rita and Cyclops having a conversation. They were on a balcony overlooking the planet's landscape of trees shaped like giant mushrooms adorned with dangling balls hanging from vines, like a forest of party hats. Little bird-like things, or maybe they were more bug-like, were coming and going from the hanging spheres. On the ground, vines slithered around like snakes, making themselves into nests where the little flying critters laid eggs, and that was just right outside this part of the balcony. Ben hadn't seen too much of Battle World, but what he had seen was enough to convince him that most of the worlds in the galaxy had to be real weird.
Interesting. Xavier said he wasn't sitting in his wheelchair at the moment he was brought here, and then he was in it when we arrived.
Not for very long.
If that was his deepest wish, then he won't need to slay any enemy, will he?
You think that's what happened?
What? That Xavier wished himself out of the wheelchair? I don't know, Scott. What do you think?
I'm not sure.
Try this out. It seems to me that the Beyonder changed us a little when he brought us here, removed what he sees as weaknesses, so we would be at our best to face each other. Ben, you look exhausted. You should get some rest.
Shut-eye ain't on the agenda tonight, I don't think. Looks like it's not for you either.
We're just trying to figure out what the Beyonder is up to, like everyone else.
Yeah, but you've got a lot more brains to work with than most of us, Reed. Give us the short version when you've got it figured out, so we can all get our fondest wishes. Good night.
He walked off down another hall, thinking about his fondest wish. It was still what it had been since the moment cosmic rays had scrambled up his genome. He wanted to be normal. But he wouldn't be any good to the Fantastic Four if he was normal. Then he'd just be Ben Grimm from Yancey Street.
Careful what you wish for.
Still, maybe normal blue-collar Ben Grimm would be worthy of Alicia.
What if we never get back, you know? I mean...
Cut it out. The Fantastic Four have been in a lot of crazy cosmic situations. That's how we became the FF in the first place, remember? We'll handle it, and we'll get back, no sweat.
Johnny Storm and Spider-Man were hanging out in a large room outside the living quarters. Johnny had forgotten one thing, Ben thought. On those missions, they had Susie along. She was the glue that kept them all together. Plus, she could be real handy in a fight. Without her, Ben wasn't sure how the team would handle the first real tough scrap they got into. They'd gone on missions before without all four of them present, but this was something new. Ben would have felt a lot better with Sue along. He thought about joining their conversation, but right then Spider-Man looked up, except looking at Ben.
Something's wrong. It's over there.
Peter looked out the huge window and was pointing at the far end of the base. More than a mile from where they stood, light flared from an outlying structure.
That's our base's power plant.
I'll go check it out.
Johnny flew toward a door leading outside to sound the alarm.
Careful, buddy. This is a little bigger than your average mugger.
I can handle it, tough guy. But, hustle, will ya?
Spider-Man swung ahead faster than Ben could keep up. But a lot of the others had seen the giant number 4 Johnny had blazed in the sky outside their base. By the time Ben got to the power plant, he was running with most of the Avengers. Spider-Man was already inside. As the team charged into the reactor control room, floating metal fragments wrapped themselves around Spidey, enclosing him, then bouncing him across the floor. The accountable party was obvious.
Ladies and gents, may I present Magneto, Master of Magnetism.
There he is.
Magneto flicked Hawkeye's arrow aside, sending it ricocheting off a panel of machinery.
None of you will touch me.
Magneto spread his arms wide and then brought them together, pulling huge chunks of the walls inward to collapse onto the charging heroes.
Iron Man, She-Hulk, Thing, brace for walls.
Ben got under part of one of the walls with Iron Man next to him. Together, they kept the rest of the team from getting squashed, with She-Hulk holding up the other side. But their approach to Magneto was blocked.
The reactor!
Reed waved his arms. Ben was no genius, but he could put 2 and 2 together. Magneto had done something that was going to blow the reactor. It would kill them all.
I got this shit. Go get him!
Ben got mad. Maybe not Hulk mad. Where was the big green guy anyway? But pretty damn mad. Plowing through the debris, he went after Magneto. Wasp zipped over his head, having shrunk herself small enough that she could find a faster way through the barrier.
The party's not over, Max. I ain't got my dainty paws on you yet.
Me neither.
Bioelectric energy crackled from Wasp's hands, ready to sting. But Magneto just waved his hand and magnetically tugged together pieces of the walls and machinery, snapping them into a perfect sphere that surrounded and ensnared Wasp. He hesitated a moment, and Ben pushed forward. Then Magneto turned and pulled the imprisoned Wasp in his wake as he flew, but it was slowing him down.
No, you don't.
In a couple of more steps, Ben would be close enough. And that was when he got his fondest wish.
What?
He felt the metamorphosis beginning from the outside in. His field of vision changed as the rocky brows of the Thing receded, became the normal human eyebrows of Benjamin Grimm, the pride of Yancey Street. His hands, outstretched and grasping for Magneto, shrank and became flesh, with 5 fingers again instead of 4. He felt his immense might leaving him, replaced by the ordinary strength of a guy who had always kept himself in shape, but wasn't any superhero. Hair sprouted from his head. He felt the air on his skin, then fell to his knees, unaccustomed to moving so little mass with such a different center of gravity. He looked up at Magneto, sailing away without a care in the world, Wasp drawn behind him in her metal ball. He'd failed. Wasp was gone. Typical Ben Grimm, he thought. Always coming up just short.
Why now?
He was still sitting on the floor when the rest of the group got through the barrier of wreckage.
What? Don't ask me, Stretcho. It just happened.
Like when Xavier started walking. Wishes are coming true.
Speaking of Xavier.
Spectrum looped back down to land next to She-Hulk.
I hope everyone noticed that none of the X-Men showed up to fight Magneto. Guess that settles whose side they're on.
Not now, Spectrum. Under control, Reed?
Reed was already examining the reactor.
Now it is.
Good. Now we can focus on solving the problems in front of us, not creating more. We need to find Wasp.
Magneto set the whole thing up so he could get her. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right, Rhodey. He didn't attack any of us. He just captured her and got out while we were trying to keep the power plant from cycling itself into an overload. What we don't know is why.
So let's go after him and find out. Shouldn't be hard to track him, should it?
We won't know until we try. But that's not our only problem.
They followed Cap to the elevator and up to the central control room, where Hulk was studying giant video screens that displayed real-time pictures of various parts of Battleworld. And one of them then saw Galactus on top of a mountain.
Galactus is giving off a strange field of energy, but I still can't identify it.
The next screen was filled with what looked like a powerful storm.
Judging from what Dr. Banner and I found out using these sensor screens, we're gonna have our hands full right here, and soon.
Magneto knew better than to free the Wasp the moment he returned to his base. She would attack with all the fury of her namesake insect, and he would be forced to respond in kind. It was not how he wished their initial interaction to unfold. So instead, he left her safe and secure in the sphere he had created, and he watched the storm. He had never seen anything like it. The rain by itself would have pulverized many structures on Earth. The winds would have torn them off their foundations. It was a marvel, surely surpassing anything Aurora Monroe had ever summoned. Unless it was she creating it now, or Thor. Magneto thought that unlikely. Thor would only exert his powers in battle, and even if such a storm were Aurora's fondest wish, she would never endanger her comrades to bring it about. Although, perhaps even she was vulnerable to the blandishments of the Beyonder. So too was Magneto himself, of course. He had not realized his loneliness. He had initiated the skirmish with the heroes in an attempt to keep them out of his way, but instead, Battleworld had presented him with an unforeseen opportunity. He realized now that his sudden decision to capture Wasp had been more wish fulfillment than strategic abduction. One of the things he wished for was a companion, and Battleworld, knowing his desires more keenly than himself, had given him the chance to acquire one. She had given him a signal earlier. He was certain of that. When the others had been turning on him, Janet Van Dyne had stepped in and diffused the tension. Perhaps Battleworld had been speaking through her, or perhaps it was Battleworld that had attuned him to what she was saying. In either case, now that he had watched the storm for some time, he supposed he had better attend to her. As he prepared, Magneto devoted a small portion of his powers to gently levitating the metal sphere across the room. Miss Van Dyne resumed her normal size.
Ah, good evening.
He had chosen to meet her while reclining, with his helmet off and a drink in his hand. The removal of the helmet, which protected him from telepathic and psionic attacks, was a security risk, but not a large one. Magneto had noted the absence of any X-Men in the response to his gambit. From this, he deduced that they were occupied with issues of their own.
Do you prefer to be called Wasp? If so, kindly do not attempt to sting me. You will find my person is magnetically shielded, and your stinger's energy will be dissipated with no harm to either of us.
I don't care what you call me, and if you think I have to sting you directly to hurt you, you haven't been paying attention.
She blasted his drink out of his hand.
I can bring this whole room down on your head if I want to.
That would make us both quite uncomfortable, given the current weather situation. Since neither of us can leave, I suggest a truce. I would like to talk. That is why I brought you here.
Yeah? You have a pretty pushy way of arranging a conversation. But all right, we're here, and you're right. We can't go anywhere. Talk.
First, I apologize for the method of your conveyance here. I wished you neither harm nor humiliation. If I caused either, it is to my sorrow. You are obviously a woman of intelligence and understanding, as well as great beauty. And I am not the monster you seem to think I am, which is precisely what I wish to discuss.
My intelligence and beauty? Or you not being a murderer?
Why both?
I've had a lot of men and a number of women put the moves on me. But this is the strangest first date I've ever been on.
Ass. Just
So
like
it's a
fucking
date.
Disney.
He gestured at a table on the far side of the room, where he had placed an open bottle of wine and an empty glass. She frowned at him. But after a moment, she shrugged.
Sure, why not?
She poured herself a glass.
Shit.
You went to all the trouble to bring me here. Least I can do is have a drink before I inevitably disappoint you.
Superb.
Yeah, I'm
Drink
already
and conversation. Inevitable disappointment, however, I think is unlikely. Battleworld seems constructed along quite opposite lines.
He smiled at her, and she smiled back. For the moment, that was enough. Doom fixed the coordinates in his armor's onboard system and took off. He had already learned to navigate by the landmarks and magnetic signatures of Battleworld's surface. The storm hindered his progress, but his destination was many miles distant. The storm would not affect him there. In his initial reconnaissance of Battleworld, following his ill-fated attempt to breach the Beyonders barrier, Doom had observed something interesting, something familiar, and the base's strange technology had all but confirmed his suspicions. He landed on a street of 3- and 4-story buildings and surveyed his surroundings. His hypothesis was correct. Wedged into the crust of Battleworld between a stinking swamp and the far arc of the volcanic range that extended for thousands of miles across the planet's surface was a fair portion of an Earth city. He had to match the images of its tallest buildings to databases carried in his armor's computer system. Interesting, he thought. It wasn't London or Tokyo, Lagos or Rio or New York.
I'm gonna stall because this guy is way bigger than me and I don't give a shit.
After a few blocks, the squat apartment buildings gave way to a more urban setting, with taller structures more densely packed. The citizens of Denver appear to be coping with their wrenching dislocation as well as any ordinary person could have. They cooked meals on gas grills, walked the streets, and attempted to shore up their perimeter defenses against the fauna inhabiting the landscapes where the streets of Denver ended and the multifarious chaos of Battleworld began. Doom had chosen to alter his appearance temporarily, using a holographic projector in his armor to present himself as he would look without it, and without the scarring on his face. He disdained such illusions, but his goals would be more easily achieved if he could make social contact without his true identity being revealed at first. Part of Doom's errand here was simple reconnaissance. The more he understood about how Battleworld was constructed, the more insight he might gain into the Beyonders' methods, and thereby his goals. In Doom's experience, once you knew what someone wanted and why, it was child's play to turn their plans against them. But he had come for another reason as well. He was looking for human, or at least humanoid, specimens to take part in an experimental endeavor. He had found a great deal of equipment in the installation he called Doombase. Some of it remained inscrutable to him, but some had yielded their secrets. One item in particular held his interest. Doom believed that he could use it to create powers and select human beings who had a certain bent toward possibility, toward perhaps desire.
Hey, he's got 30 levels on me.
Interest in the
better gear and everything. Why not give him RNG as well?
People present in this area, perhaps more. Should he take a few of them by force? This seemed unnecessary. It would be more fitting to find a few likely candidates and make them a simple offer. Do as I wish, and you will have power beyond your wildest imaginings. It was the same appeal the Beyonder had made to Doom and the others brought from Earth. The difference was, Doom knew exactly how he would follow through, and when he had, he would be that much closer to claiming a prize that the Beyonder did not know he or it had offered. Around him, Doom felt the essence of Battleworld shift. He became more conscious of some of the people nearby, and less conscious of others.
It won't be bullied by a man ever again. I know, but let's just get back to my place before we get caught out here again.
Certain faces stood out.
I went to pick up Heather from school and the whole school was gone. My baby! I need to find my baby!
Certain voices were clearer.
People laughing said I was a prepper, but now he's laughing. We've been up water, camp, and stuff now the last 3 months. After that,
He felt inclinations to follow a specific course along the open area that signs designated the 16th Street Mall. Behind his mask, Doom smiled. This was how the Beyonder, or perhaps Battleworld itself expressed approval. Doom was not an unconscious participant. He let Battleworld lead him. He would address himself to likely candidates and let their own desires guide him to fulfill his. He was drawn to a pair of young women making their way through the skyscrapers and chaos, trying to figure out how to survive in this new land. Many of Denver's citizens had armed themselves, presumably against incursions of beasts from the adjoining swamp. Others had organized into groups to handle the distribution of resources. He saw police officers, firefighters, and less formal bands of what he assumed were citizen militias. What he did not see was overt violence or signs that large-scale rioting had occurred. The people seemed largely peaceful. Was that an effect of Battleworld as well?
Our sins have delivered us to a new kind of hell. Do not look to worldly survival.
Doom considered the words of this street preacher who shouted a few blocks away. Doom, too, would have found himself scrambling to understand if he had not been made aware of the Beyonder. For a time, at least. As it was, Doom understood all. Ladies. They looked up as he uncloaked himself, revealing his true aspect.
Permit me to introduce myself. I am Victor Von Doom, sovereign of Latveria, scientist and diplomat. May I have a word?
He was testing the guidance of Battleworld here. Most ordinary people would have leapt out of their chairs and run shrieking at the sight of the Fantastic Four's armor-clad arch-nemesis. These two, however, regarded him with interest, not fear. This was marvelous, Doom thought. He was working in cooperation with the consciousness animating Battleworld. This must surely mean success.
A word about what?
They were an unusual pair. The one who had spoken was tall but overweight, hunched over self-consciously. The other was small and thin, and looked to Doom's eye as if she had not had regular exercise in some time.
You are aware that we are displaced from our previous environment.
You can say that again. You don't seem too worried about it, though.
That is because I have a plan. It requires assistance.
Does it now?
I would not say too much here. My reputation is somewhat checkered, shall we say, due to poor publicity and media bias.
I know how that can be.
The blonde extended her hand. Doom shook it, careful not to engage the servo motors in his gauntlet that could crush her hand to paste.
Mary McFerrin, but you can call me Skeeter. That's, some glove you've got there.
It is of my own design. Victor Von Doom.
Marcia Rosenberg.
Doom knew that his appearance often had an unnerving effect on people due to a natural fear of advanced technology and power, and perhaps of those who hide their faces, but Mrs. McFerrin and Rosenberg did not seem discomfited in the least.
Marcia, Skeeter, I have a proposal for you. It involves some slight risk, but certainly no more than you already experience in this place, surrounded by the deadly variety of organisms that roam this world.
Sales pitch?
Indeed. I bring to you a proposal, and like all good deals, this one benefits us both. I have need of more people to execute a plan that will return us all to our home world and situate us better than when we left. For you, the benefits present opportunity. Would you wish to get home? Would you wish to be a part of the grand mission that will open the way for us to do so? Here is a way to unlock that door, which also leads to a destiny you have never imagined.
Inside the Heroes' headquarters, Storm headed for the command center. Its nearly hemispherical dome would allow her to better observe the Tempest's fury. On camera, debris from their fight with the villains roiled in the floodwaters washing down from the crest of hills where the battle had occurred. Reed, Ben, and Johnny watched the floodwaters tearing through the valley. Some of the building's lower levels were well underwater, but the structure's integrity was holding up so far.
These unknown alien dudes sure know how to build giant headquarters. Gotta give them credit.
Yeah, next thing you know, it'll turn itself into an ark and we can just float back there.
They turned to see Storm coming in, and she nodded. She was not particularly close to any of the three, but she valued them as allies.
I came in to get a look at the weather. I could have opened an exterior door, but I didn't wish to inflict it on anyone else.
Well, man, it's not quite as dead as we were led to believe.
Thank you for saying so, then. You're...
Yep, flesh and blood. Don't know how it happened.
Also, don't know if I'll be any good in a fight now. Funny how when you get what you want, it isn't always what you want.
Perhaps that is a lesson of Battleworld. Maybe another lesson of Battleworld is you can't count on your friends to come through when you're under attack.
Is that an accusation, John? Magneto was in and out of this base practically before we knew of his presence. We were gathered in a distant wing. But if you have already decided to ascribe a certain motivation to our actions, that explanation will not satisfy you.
No, I'll take your word for it. I can't speak for everyone.
Nor would I ask you to. Your candor is appreciated, as is your trust.
She returned to observing the weather and glanced occasionally at the video image of Galactus, who still stood on his mountain peak. The storm did not move him or appear to interest him. Storm would have given a great deal of money to know what he was doing. She would have given even more to eliminate the mistrust that was already tainting the relationships among the displaced heroes.
Manners may not be dead, but we might.
Storm checked the monitor to see what he was talking about. Far above them, the storm had sheared off the top of a mountain, either along an ancient fissure, or because the mountain had been weakened by being slammed into this new planet along with dozens or hundreds of other mountain ranges from different worlds. The broken piece was larger than the HQ. It tumbled against the mountain's flank, slid, then turned over and bounced free.
It's heading right for us. We don't stand a chance.
If I can get outside.
Storm instinctively sprinted for the nearest exit, but she wouldn't be able to get there in time.
Too bad.
Stopped in her tracks.
You're dead.
Something streaked into view on the monitor, like lightning, but moving in the wrong direction, at an angle up from the ground. It hit the immense mass of rock and blew it apart.
Holy!
Some larger boulders broke through, leaving dents and damaged machinery, but nothing like the devastation the intact mountaintop would have caused.
Who did that?
Storm glanced at Reed. He was looking at her with a half smile.
It doesn't take a scientist to figure this out, does it, Reed?
If I extrapolate from the available data, Aurora, which is that you are here in front of us, then there is really only one other possibility.
Let me go see if we are correct.
A cylindrical structure set at the back end of the HQ against the slope of another mountain towered 100 meters or more over the main dome and outlying structures. Storm lifted herself to it, riding the wild currents and the ever-present tingle of lightning about to birth itself. Standing atop the tower, arm raised and hair whipping, was exactly who she had expected. Thor. His hammer arced down out of the sky into his palm as she landed on the tower's observation platform next to him.
A fine evening for the likes of us. Not so the poor souls trapped inside.
True! And you seem to be making a sport of it.
Sport? You read my mind, Aurora Monroe. You see, I have been competing against myself to see how many rocks I can knock from the sky. It's not a good contest with only one player. But you will be a fine challenger.
I don't have a hammer!
Surely one such as you needs no such tool. You were born with the powers of weather at your command. Forgive a god for his simpler toys.
All right, we'll call that even. Let's see what you've got.
The violence of the storm, even apart from the lightning, would have been fatal to most people within minutes. But the Thunder God and Mistress of the Elements had their own ways of handling the extreme meteorological event. Lightning blasted down around Thor.
I love these books, but this one is boring the shit out of me.
Flooded the valley surrounding their headquarters. As the lightning crashed around her, she exulted in it. This weather surged through her like nothing she had ever felt on Earth. Her blood was lightning, her heart beat thunder. This was what she always imagined when a storm on Earth had passed. It was grander, epic in scale and violence.
Storm!
Aurora felt like she had been meant to come here. Even if she were not meant to stay, this was a small part of her destiny.
Storm!
She was so swept up in the experience, but she hadn't even heard Thor.
Aurora!
When she finally did look over, he held up 3 fingers.
Already?
You have some catching up to do!
Game on!
Poor
channel lightning down to destroy a steep slope and control its collapse. It tumbled away into the valley floor rather than burying part of the HQ. She carved a new channel with the waters, directing them away from the vulnerable lower levels. But mostly, she blew rocks out of the sky, as did Thor. The storm loosened and broke off the surrounding mountains. She and Thor stayed even, more or less. She was right that Mjolnir gave him striking power she did not possess. He was right that she could use wind and temperature and rain to achieve less spectacular, but equally vital effects. It was the best game she had ever played, matching strike for strike with the God of Thunder. And then it was over.
Aurora, we must consult immediately.
Aurora faltered. She had a feeling she knew what Xavier was going to say, but she had to go. Being part of the X-Men meant answering the call, even when you knew it was going to be bad news.
I can see, Thor! I am needed elsewhere!
Hide inside there!
Thor's
I
teeth
can't
were
listen
bared
to
in a
this
gleeful
anymore. It's
snarl,
graphic
like he was throwing
audio.
Mjolnir at frost giants instead of flying boulders.
I swear on Gungnir itself that I will not mock you when next we meet. And though I may strike 1,000 mountains
Graphic
in the sky when
audio
you're
is
gone, I will
Marvel
count none
Comics
of them
Secret
against you.
Wars. It's just horrible to me. Can't do it. Wrong team. Man, these ghost peppers are hot. What happened to my music? Epic, epic, epic music. We will rise up. We will overcome. We will succeed. Some of us may fall. It is a sacrifice we must make to see through to the dawn of a new age. An age without evil. An age without envy. Hell, I'm gone. I don't even see myself. Where did I go? Shit, this is like hours behind. I just got back with my salsa, which I'm almost done with. Still not right. I'm going to go ahead and use the key on the regular boss because he needs just a few more million. And I'm logging off for the day. I've been up since 11:30 midnight yesterday. Tired, drunk. It's time to go to bed. All right, that is that. Enjoy.